From the beautiful Finger Lakes region of upstate New York, this is the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. We take questions from anyone in the dental profession and discuss what it takes to win not only in dentistry, but in life. Business, leadership, relationships, parenting, health and wellness, money management, nothing is off limits on the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. I'm Jason Tenori, your host, and have over 20 years of experience to pull from. Learn from my mistakes and let me help you collapse time so you can become the best version of yourself. Yo, welcome back, Dental Lighthouse Podcast. Dr. Jason here on a dreary upstate New York day. It's pouring outside. Anyways, I wanted to share with you a very short kind of TED Talk, 20-minute presentation that I did for my good friend, Dr. Paul Goodman, otherwise known as Dr. Dental Nachos, at his Summer Boost extravaganza. I spoke on Friday about servant leadership, and we'll probably share that episode somewhere on the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. And then on Saturday, I spoke about the concept of removing yourself from the chair, but not from the office. And it's a tough transition to kind of figure out how I can get away from hands-on clinical dentistry and use your skill set to lead people, to grow people, to mentor people. And sometimes docs kind of get into this gray area where they have this newfound time and they're not really sure how to utilize it, right? Because all they've really done their whole career is clinical dentistry. So again, we can't unpack everything in 20 minutes, but what I really tried to do in this quick TED Talk type presentation is making sure that you're asking the right questions. So I would hope that you guys find some value from it, especially those of you that are in that process of maybe bringing on your first associate or maybe multiple associates, and you're trying to figure out a way to reduce your clinical time and use your extremely valuable skill set on growing the business, on working on the business instead of simply just in it. So I hope you find value in it. And obviously, if you have any questions or concerns about it, if you want the slide deck, if you want to just talk about anything, my contact information is on the website, thedentallighthouse.com. I hope that you have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you soon. So I've been asked to talk about removing yourself from the operatory, but not from the office. And we could probably speak for a couple days on this. And the way I do it is going to be different than the way you guys do it. So I thought the best thing to do would be to, instead of giving you the answers, maybe I give you guys better questions to ask. Yesterday, I was lucky enough to talk to you guys about some servant leadership principles that have really served me well. And one of the basic tenets is just ask better questions. Don't assume. Just always go into conversations, into uncomfortable conversations from a period of like empathy and curiosity, and just try to figure out what's going on. So that's what I'd like to do today. This is the financial slide. I don't have any financial relationship with anyone. A little bit about me. From upstate New York. I have a group practice in the Rochester Finger Lakes area. Blessed to have 5 children. I married way up. I started the Dental Lighthouse Podcast about a year ago. It's been such a blessing to have real dentists call and ask questions, and it's really filled up my cup. So thank you for that. I do a little bit of private and group coaching. I strive to be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ, and I'm just trying to get a little bit better every day. A note to myself here on the bottom, I am not reliable. So at the end, I will share my cell phone, and you can call me, text me, if you need like someone to give you some accountability or some programming for deadlifting or anything like that. But if you need any of the documents that I'm going to be talking about today, yes, I've written them, but I have no idea where they are. So the email address that I'm going to share with you goes to my personal assistant, who has way more access to all of these things than I do. So if you actually want to get some of these resources in a timely manner, please do not text me. I'm horrible at responding with stuff like that. Please email Kenzie at the email on the last slide. Some pictures of my family. And I shared this slide here because my wife and I just spent 2 weeks in Italy. 14 days, it was amazing. It was just her and I. And the reason I'm showing this is not to brag or flex or anything like that, but
I have 8 locations. Total, we do about $2.5 million every month. And every office ran without a blip, right? I wasn't there. So when we talk about how to get yourself out of the operatory, we're talking about associates, and we're talking about systematizing things to the point where you don't have to be depended on, where the success of the practice is not reliable on your ability to produce. Now, that's my vision. That doesn't necessarily need to be your vision. And the next slide, we'll start to ask those questions of what is your vision? So some of the things that I coach on is I want everyone to think about their vision in 3-year blocks. I feel that 5, 10, 15 year, yeah, you can have somewhat of an idea, but things change so quickly that it's been my experience that knowing where you want to be in 3 years is where you should start. Write it down. Ask yourself questions like, how much money do I want to bring in? How much money do I want to make? How many employees? How many locations? What type of dentistry do I want to do? These are questions that you have to be asking yourself, and you have to have absolute clarity on. And the reason being is this photograph, it's an iconic photograph of Michael Phelps in the 2016 Olympics. Michael Phelps' vision is to win gold, right? He is dialed in and is looking straight ahead. His competitor is worried about him, worried about Michael Phelps. And I find that all the time when I'm doing one-on-one and group coaching is we're so worried about what everyone else is doing. Comparison is the thief of joy. And if you don't have clarity with what you want in life, then all you're going to do is wake up and see what he's doing, and see what she's doing, and see what he's doing, and ask yourself, well, why can't I do that? Like Mark and Paul have alluded to, there's always going to be someone that has more money, more practices, more employees, more cars. That shouldn't be what we're comparing ourselves against. We should be comparing ourselves against who we were yesterday. And if you don't have clarity with where you're trying to go, then you have no basis of comparison. It's a great book from Dan Sullivan. Dan Sullivan is the founder of Strategic Coach. He's written a number of great books with Benjamin Hardy. I love them all. But one of the books is Gap in the Gain, where they talk specifically about this point. Us as humans are so focused on what we could have done that we never take a chance to take a step back and say, look how far we've come. So have vision with where you want to go. How much time do you want to dedicate to your clinical work? How much time do you want to dedicate to your non-clinical work? How much income do you need to support your family? Do you want to develop levels of leadership, which is, in my opinion, what it takes to scale an organization? So do the vision work. The next set of questions that you need to ask yourself when we're going to bring on an associate is, do I have capacity and facility? So there's a couple ways of looking at this. Do I have enough rooms, right? Now, it depends on your style of practice, but in my ecosystem, we have 5 operatories for every dentist. So the dentist works out of 2 rooms with 2 assistants. He or she's got 2 hygienists, and then there's an overflow room. So if you only have 5 operatories and you're running a busy PPO type practice, it's going to be tough to bring on another provider. So you have to have a little bit of clarity with what type of facility you need if we're thinking about bringing on providers so you can step away from the chair. Do you have enough demand? Now, everybody's going to give you different metrics when it comes to demand. In my opinion, and I have 25 associates, I have a little bit of a track record here, we want our doctors to have 40 new patients per month. And that's, again, in a bread and butter, PPO-driven practice. So if you're averaging more than 40 new patients per month, or let's say double that, then you're probably ready. If you're doing fee-for-service dentistry, if you're doing a lot of quadrant and full arch dentistry, you don't need that many. So you have to ask yourself this question: how many new patients do I need to warrant bringing on an associate? How far are you booking out? What style of dentistry are you performing? What is the ideal hygiene-to-doctor ratio? For us, like I just mentioned, it's 2 to 1. We want 1 doctor looking after 2 hygienists. Now, as we're scaling, that changes a little bit. Jake talked about this yesterday. He likes to go from 1 doctor and 2 hygienists to 2 doctors and 3 hygienists. I don't agree with that. I love everything about Jake outside of this one thing, right? So I believe that 1 doctor should be chasing 3 hygienists before they bring on the second doctor. But again, we're kind of splitting hairs here, okay? So ask yourself what you want the ideal ratio to be. And then again, ask yourself, how many days are you open? Are you going to do split scheduling? Some people will tell me, oh, I have a 5-operatory practice and I can easily bring on a second or third associate. But what they don't tell you is they're doing split shifts, they're working 12-hour days, and they're open 6 days a week. It's just been my experience that that doesn't do a ton for morale, and it doesn't do a ton for team communication, because there's never a day where everyone's in the building together. So again, you do you. I just want you to ask the right questions. Income. How much money are you making as a dentist? And then how much money are you making as a CEO? And how much money are you making as a business owner? Those are the 3 buckets that you have to consider. That's what you're currently taking home now if you're a business owner. As soon as you start bringing on associates, you will take a hit in income. There's no doubt in my mind. It happens every single time. Now, is that okay? Well, you don't know if it's okay unless you have clarity with how much money you really need to make to support the lifestyle that you want to provide for your family. So without having clarity on that, it's hard to answer this question. I hear people talk about all the time the rule of 3 and free. And what they're saying here is, as long as I can bring on 3 associates, then I don't have to do any more clinical dentistry. Again, that's not true, right? But I hear it all the time, 3 and free, 3 and free. So most of you guys that are here that are owners are probably super producers. You're probably unicorns. You probably do $150,000 to $200,000 a month, right? Good luck finding associates, especially 3 of them, that are going to end up doing $150,000 to $200,000 a month. I can tell you they're not out there. And if they are out there, they own their own practice, right? So the whole 3 and free, like, get that out of your mind. So it's been my experience that I usually make about 8 to 10% per associate's collections. So just kind of use that rule in the back of your hand, back of your head. So can you tolerate an income hit? How profitable is the business? If you guys are running at, say, 15% EBITDA, you can solve a lot of problems by figuring out how to get to 20%, right? You don't need to work nearly as much if you can raise the EBITDA 5% over a quarter, over a year. And then in a couple of these slides I put down here, need help and where to start. That means that I have a resource that you could reach out to me and I can have Kenzie send it to you. And I put this picture here, this chalice and saucer. Reminds me of Dave Ramsey. I'm a huge Dave Ramsey fan. And I get asked a lot about, Jason, when's enough enough? You know, you have 160 employees, you're doing, a ton of revenue every month. Like, at what point is enough enough? And I always go back to this. So Ramsey tells this story or uses this analogy of the cup is intended to be how much money I need to support my family, right? What number of dollars do I need to bring home every month to provide the lifestyle that I promised my wife and my kids? So that's what the size of the cup is. And everybody's going to have a different cup, right? As things overflow and fall into the saucer, now this overflow is what I'm able to give back. And in efforts to give to the community, to give to people in need, to make anonymous donations, whatever it is. So my cup hasn't really grown that much in the last 10 years. And maybe some of you guys that are a little bit older kind of fall into this bucket too, is you get to a certain point where you kind of figure out how to live comfortably, and you don't necessarily need more money. But as you're growing a company, more money flows over into the saucer. And that's opportunity to serve others. That's opportunities to love on others. That's opportunity to leave a legacy. And that's why I continue to grow. That's what gets me out of bed. So just wanted you to have that analogy in the back of your mind. Recruitment, onboarding, and retention. Do you have an avatar of the associate dentist that you're looking for? You should have clarity with what you want their skill set to be. Do you want them to be extroverted or introverted? Do you want them to be right out of school? Do you want them to be 2 or 3 years working for corporate? Do you want them to be a man or a woman? Right? More and more women are graduating from dental school. Like, most of my associates are female. I don't really know why that is, but it works out for us. So ask yourself, like, what is the ideal avatar? If you're someone that does tons of surgery, maybe don't bring on an associate that does a ton of surgery. Maybe bring on an associate that does more clear aligner therapy, that does more cosmetic-based cases. Find someone that's going to complement you. How will you find them? Obviously a plug here for Dr. Paul Goodman and Dentist Job Connect. He's helped me find a couple associates. It's a wonderful resource if you're actively looking for someone. But there's a ton of different ways to actively find prospective associates. How will you train and onboard them? I'll share some documents here in a little bit of how we do it. How will you keep them happy? What will differentiate you? You know, there's a lot of opportunities for associates. What's going to separate you? Can you offer full-time or do they have to start part-time and phase into full-time? What's going to keep them around? Are you going to offer partnership? I can guarantee you're going to get this question. And when you don't know the answer, you look foolish. You look like you haven't thought it through. So have clarity, ask yourself that question. Am I going to offer levels of equity? And again, if you need help, please reach out. So here's a couple of our onboarding documents. You know, many of you came up to me yesterday thanking me for putting these together. We have extremely robust onboarding documents for our associates. They're really like a kind of connect the dots type of thing. So the associates know exactly what they're going to be responsible for on any given day. Everything has to get checked off, everything has to get signed off. And we don't do this because we're trying to micromanage them, but we do this because we want them to know what our expectations are, and we want to make sure that nothing gets mixed. Ideal week. Do you realize that you just added a part-time job to your week? So when I get on a coaching call, one of the things that makes me laugh inside is, hey, I just brought on this associate, so now I can actually breathe a little bit. I can actually take some time away. Nothing could be further from the truth. As soon as you bring on an associate, you just registered for a part-time job. It's at least 15 to 20 additional hours per week. It is what it is. Now, if you do a good job in onboarding this person, yes, you'll create a little bit of margin, you'll create a little bit of capacity, and you'll create a little bit of breathing room. But please, please, please don't assume that on day one, you don't have to show up because you now have another provider in the office. That's a wonderful recipe for failure. Ask me how I know. I've made every mistake in the book when it comes to onboarding associates, right? So please, please, please realize that you're going to have to pour into this person if you want them to stick around long term. This concept of an ideal week, and Ryan Holiday, I don't think he fathered this quote, but he said it just a gazillion times. Whenever you say yes to something, you're automatically saying no to something else. One of the things I want you guys to consider, and you'll see it here on the next slide, is an ideal week template. You know, Mark referenced that there's seasons of life where you are going to be working 10, 12-hour days. I have found, and I agree with that, I have found that we need to put intention to our calendars. If we're not intentional with where we're going to be in 15-minute increments every single day of the week, then we allow chaos and confusion and urgency to leak in. So what I would strongly encourage you to do, and here's an example of mine from a couple years ago, what I would strongly encourage you to do is open up a simple spreadsheet and just own your schedule. What time are you going to wake up? What are you going to do when you wake up? When are you going to work out? When are you going to do clinical dentistry? When are you going to mentor your associate? When are you going to take your wife out on a date? When are you going to hit the sauna? When are you going to hit the cold plunge? Like, if you don't make time for this, it will not happen. Every time you say yes to something, you're unintentionally saying no to something else. Because if you think you can squeeze it in, what I'm telling you you're doing is you're either squeezing in this thing that you agreed to and something else is leaving, or you're squeezing in something and everything else is getting now 50 or 60% of you and not 100% of you. And again, ask me how I know. I would agree to things, and then when I'm supposed to be sitting at the dinner table with my family, with my wife and my kids, I'm consumed with something that I agreed to. Like, I'm not present with them. So yes, do I still technically have time to have dinner with them? Yes. Am I present mentally and emotionally? No. So I have some resources on how to create your ideal week. I would strongly, strongly, strongly encourage you to go through this process. Do it for a couple weeks. At the end of the week, Sunday night, audit yourself. You know, when you first do it, you'll probably get it right 50% of the time. and then the following week it'll be 60, 65%. And you'll ultimately get it to the point where 90 to 95% of your week is really, real dialed in, and there's so much freedom in knowing where you need to be, when you need to be there, and not having to worry about, am I gonna get all this shit done? And then finally, in terms of bringing on an associate and removing yourself from the chair, are your expectations realistic? You know, most people think, especially if you haven't done this before, that it's gonna be smooth. It's just gonna be like this, and it never is, right? I say to my kids all the time, I say to my employees all the time, in every situation in life, we don't win or lose, we win or we learn. In fact, just today, funny story, just today we were having breakfast. I have my wife and two of my sons here. We were at breakfast, and my two 14-year-old boys are very philosophical, let's just call it that. So Luke says to me, Dad, what is the biggest mistake you've ever made in your life? And I'm like, holy shit, like really? I mean, this is what we're talking about at breakfast? So I'm like, thinking about it. And then my wife, Kara, says, well, you know, I have a 24-year-old daughter, and I coached her in competitive travel softball, and she was my first experience in terms of coaching my oldest child, and I was not a good coach. I drove her, you know, we're constantly doing drills. I was a slave drive. I mean, it was crazy. Like, I look back at it, and I'm like, holy shit. So Kara, my wife Kara, is like, well, the first time you coached Anna, it was not good, right? Because I was following what every other dad was doing. You were talking about comparison is the thief of joy. And then I said to myself, you know what, Kara, you're definitely right. But again, within the family, we're constantly talking about we either win or we learn. If I didn't go through that situation, if I didn't fail and learn from it, then I would not be the coach that I am for my 14-year-old son, right? So have realistic expectations. When you fail, don't just chalk it up to, oh, I failed. Ask yourself, what can I really learn from this? And you'll be that much better the next time you do it. Thank you very much, guys. This is my email address. If you want resources, this is my cell phone number. If you want some encouragement when you're benching. And then this is our website, my cell phone and contact number on there. And we talk about all this type of stuff on the podcast, so please give me a listen.
Thank you. That wraps up another episode of the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. You have a choice today. Choose to be a lighthouse. Lighthouses are powerful and steadfast. They are beacons of light for others to reference when life gets turbulent. Go out into the world today and become a lighthouse for someone. Give more than you get. True joy comes from serving others. Start today. I'm Jason Tenori, your host. Thank you for listening to the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. For more information, podcast show notes, or links to anything that we have discussed today, please check out our website, thedentallighthouse.com. We would love to hear from you. If you would like to get on the show, please email us at podcast@thedentallighthouse.com.